Tonight, you're stepping into the intriguing world of the Middle Ages. Imagine a time when people encountered such strange occurrences that if you were to witness them today, you'd likely reach out to the news, call a priest, and maybe even apologize to an ex. Before we dive deeper, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly appreciate what you find here. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you tuning in from, and what time is it for you? It's always captivating to see our global community come together. Now, let's create the right atmosphere. Dim the lights and perhaps turn on a fan for a gentle background hum. Together, we can ease into this journey. Picture medieval villagers waking up each day, anticipating the usual challenges: a broken cartwheel, a spoiled batch of ale, or Gerald, the town gossip, stirring up trouble once again. But what they didn't expect was to walk into the barn and find a cow giving birth to something so peculiar that even the heavens might have questioned. Who tampered with the settings? Occasionally, these cows would surprise everyone with calves that appeared as if they were designed by a committee of drunken goblins. Imagine a classic scene: a two-headed calf, each head gazing in opposite directions, as if it were simultaneously judging the entire village. Imagine a calf with a smooth, unsettling face, devoid of features, reminiscent of a scene straight from a medieval horror tale. Sometimes, the mouth might end up on top of the head, as if the universe had whimsically shuffled its facial traits. In those times, villagers lacked the understanding of genetics, or the idea that perhaps this cow just had a rough night. Instead, their minds jumped to the most logical conclusion: the heavens were furious. People quickly entered prophecy mode, declaring this a sign, a warning. Naturally, they blamed Margaret, who had greeted a crow just the day before. Monks rushed in, eager to document this peculiar sight, as if it were an exclusive interview. They sketched the unfortunate creature with the same seriousness as Renaissance artists, labeling it dramatically: "In the year of our Lord, a beast of two heads is born, heralding chaos." Meanwhile, the calf simply existed, bewildered and likely hungry. The villagers engaged in fervent debates about its significance. Half believed it was a divine omen, while the other half insisted it was a demonic warning. A few brave souls suggested, maybe it's just a strange cow, but their voices were quickly drowned out. As for what to do with the creature, opinions diverged wildly. Some people believed that unusual animals brought blessings, so they chose to keep them. Others thought these creatures brought curses, leading them to bury the strange beings. Then there were those with a boldness reminiscent of medieval times who suggested eating the animal. Meat is meat, they would say, while others quietly plotted how to send the creature away. And let's not forget about the Lord. He always arrived eventually, not out of kindness, but because lords had a penchant for collecting oddities. If a calf was born resembling a mythical being, he wanted it in his yard without delay. For the villagers of that era, strange animal births were more than mere biological events. They were spectacles filled with drama and excitement, the medieval equivalent of trending news. When a cow delivered an unusual offspring, the village didn't simply watch. They panicked, prayed, theorized, argued, and perhaps even pointed fingers at someone named Margaret. Such occurrences were added to their ever-growing list of reasons to believe that life was conspiring against them. Picture yourself in a time before electricity, before the convenience of neon lights, and long before you could search, "Is blue fire normal?" to soothe your worries with scientific facts. Now imagine stepping outside during a storm and witnessing the church steeple radiating a bright blue glow, as if it were about to cast a spell over the entire village. Welcome to the medieval edition of St. Elmo's fire. To us, it's simply plasma, created by strong electric fields and storms. However, for people in medieval times, this phenomenon was anything but ordinary. They perceived it as a cosmic message, a divine mood swing, a supernatural signal that promised a sleepless night. Imagine sailors spotting blue flames flickering on their ship masts. They reacted with a mix of awe and fear, believing they were being graced by glowing angels. Half the crew fell to their knees, while the other half wept. The captain, caught in the moment, pretended to understand what was unfolding, though he was just as bewildered. On land, the response was equally imaginative. When the church steeple illuminated, it was a clear sign to the peasants demons had arrived. A barn roof glowing blue, witches without a doubt, and if your hair began to crackle and glow, well, that was the end for you. Yet some brave souls dared to reach out and touch the mysterious light. It's fascinating how medieval people could fear the unknown, but still poke at glowing phenomena with sticks. Those who ventured to touch it often found themselves jolted backward by static electricity, leading the village to declare them either spiritually charged or slightly cursed. And the priests, they relished St. Elmo's fire, not because they grasped its science, but because it provided them with dramatic material for their sermons. They would stand before their congregations proclaiming, "This is a sign from heaven," all the while hoping that the blue flames wouldn't make another appearance during their sermon. Isn't it intriguing how the unknown can spark both fear and fascination? Travelers return each week with new theories. Some say it's angels, others suggest demons, and a few even think it's sea spirits climbing aboard ships. Naturally, someone in the village must have angered God, and Gerald often becomes the target of blame, as he seems to offend everyone. Meanwhile, the noble class seizes the moment for their own dramatic flair. When St. Elmo's fire flickers on their castle turret, they proclaim it as divine approval of their reign. In the fields, the peasants shiver, quietly disagreeing. The reality is that St. Elmo's fire is harmless, merely a display of electricity during stormy weather. Yet, in medieval times, knowledge of such things is absent. All they see is the world illuminated in an enchanting blue, as if touched by magic. Without science textbooks or weather apps, every unusual occurrence feels significant. A glowing steeple isn't just odd, it's a cosmic message, even if that message is simply, "A storm is coming, seek shelter." Now, imagine living in medieval Europe and suddenly feeling an irresistible urge to dance. Congratulations, that would be seen as a medical emergency. In what became known as the Dancing Plague, entire towns would erupt into frenzied, uncontrollable dancing, not the graceful waltz or joyful folk dances you might expect. Imagine your legs betraying you, compelling you to dance uncontrollably. This peculiar phenomenon first struck Strasbourg in the 16th century, when a solitary woman stepped into the street and began to move without reason. At first, onlookers thought she would soon tire, but she didn't. Instead, villagers joined her, demonstrating that peer pressure can often override common sense. Within a week, dozens were dancing, and by the end of the month, hundreds had joined in. It was the medieval equivalent of a flash mob, yet there was no planning, no joy, and everyone yearned for it to end. Modern scientists attribute this to mass hysteria, while medieval doctors had their own explanations. They blamed hot blood, a common diagnosis for the unexplained, along with cold blood or even the devil. Priests asserted it was a curse and recommended various remedies: prayer, fasting, or, if those failed, hiring musicians to encourage the dancers to shake off the demon. Yes, they brought in musicians. Picture being forced to dance for hours while someone with a drum enthusiastically tries to help. Meanwhile, the dancers were left exhausted, terrified, and bewildered. Some begged for someone to hold them still, while others collapsed, only to spring back up as if their legs had minds of their own. Can you imagine the chaos and confusion? Imagine a scene where people dance through pain, hunger, dehydration, blisters, and the most dreadful humiliation of all, public scrutiny. The authorities in the town eventually intervene, not out of kindness, but because witnessing individuals dance themselves into medical distress is detrimental to tax revenue. Their solution? Erect a stage, place the dancers upon it, and bring in professional musicians. If you're thinking, surely they didn't believe this would help, you're absolutely right. Yet, medieval logic doesn't need to be sensible, it simply needs to sound assured. Not everyone was concerned, though. Some villagers, bored and restless, treated the spectacle as mere entertainment. They'd say, "What's happening today? Oh, just 40 people dancing against their will. Better than watching goats again." In time, the plague faded away, leaving behind weary legs and bewildered townsfolk. Was it the result of psychological stress, tainted food, or societal pressure? Historians are still debating this, but one consensus remains among medieval people. It was the worst dance marathon in human history, and curiously, no one even received a prize. Have you ever observed a large flock of birds and thought, that's quite a sight? Well, medieval people would like to share their perspective with you. To them, it wasn't just a flock. Imagine a scene where the sky transforms into a vast, unsettling army of birds, casting a shadow that swallows the daylight. In medieval Europe, bird migrations were on a scale that modern society can scarcely fathom. Picture millions of starlings, cranes, and geese rising together, forming a colossal feathered cloud that stretches endlessly across the horizon. For the villagers of that time, this phenomenon wasn't merely nature at play. It was a profound sign, a message from above, perhaps even a celestial threat, a feathery apocalypse. You find yourself as a humble peasant, busy gathering turnips, when suddenly the sun vanishes, not behind clouds, but behind a whirlwind of wings. The sky darkens, and the air fills with a cacophony of screeches, as every bird in Europe seems to unite for a synchronized aerial display. What do you think happens next? Panic erupts. Some villagers drop to their knees, believing they are receiving a divine message, loud and clear. Others, accustomed to the medieval mindset of impending doom, assume this is the end of the world. After all, such declarations were common. A few optimistic souls might whisper, perhaps this is a sign of good fortune, while most are left wondering if the birds might swoop down and steal their children. And then, the local priest steps in, exuding confidence that far exceeds his actual understanding of the situation. It's a moment that encapsulates the blend of fear, wonder, and confusion that defined life in those times. Imagine standing before a congregation, and the speaker boldly proclaims, "The birds are forming a heavenly army." Just behind him, a single goose lands and honks loudly, humorously suggesting that at least one creature has been sent to cause chaos. The cacophony is enough to unsettle anyone. Thousands of wings flapping together create a sound reminiscent of a medieval drumline mixed with howling winds and an air of judgment. People instinctively cover their ears and pray, while animals become frantic. Chickens, in their usual fashion, run in circles, and horses try to bolt. Even the typically unperturbed cats seem to sense the turmoil. Then there's the aftermath, something often overlooked in historical chronicles. When millions of birds take flight, they leave behind a rain of, shall we say, blessings, fields, roofs, wagons, and even unfortunate villages are not spared. Picture this: one hapless man steps outside for just 2 minutes, only to return looking as if he's been through a battle with oatmeal. Yet, as the sky eventually clears and daylight breaks through, life resumes. Villagers breathe a sigh of relief, and priests might even claim they foresaw the event. Meanwhile, the birds continue their migration, blissfully unaware of the existential crisis they've sparked. To the people of medieval times, these avian armies were seen as ominous portents, stirring both fear and wonder. As the sun rises on a typical Monday, the birds go about their business, unaware of the looming chaos. Picture yourself as a medieval peasant, seeking a peaceful afternoon. Perhaps you long for a quiet moment to churn butter or reflect on the burdens of life. Suddenly, your tranquility shatters at the sight of a Viking longship on the horizon. This isn't just any ship, it heralds the arrival of Viking berserkers. These warriors are not your ordinary fighters. They embody chaos, like an unhinged tornado clad in fur. Berserkers are infamous for their ferocity, charging into battle in a trance so intense that even their fellow Vikings might think they need some serious help. They fight without armor, without fear, and often without shirts. After all, what better way to announce your readiness for destruction than braving the freezing Scandinavian air? For medieval peasants, witnessing a berserker in action is akin to watching a living legend unfold. A very loud, very sweaty legend. These warriors howl, shake, bite their shields, and foam at the mouth, reminiscent of a wolf that's just discovered caffeine. Their eyes bulge, veins protrude, and they sprint into battle with an energy that defies the laws of physics. Imagine being a humble turnip farmer, minding your own business, and suddenly facing a towering blonde man charging toward you, screaming like a kettle left too long on the fire. How would you feel in that moment? The terror, the disbelief. It's a scene that lingers in the mind long after the echoes of battle fade. Imagine your first thought isn't about strategy. Instead, it's the realization that you might become a mere footnote in a monk's diary. When modern historians discuss berserkers, they often use terms like psychological warfare, battle trance, and even hallucinogenic mushrooms. However, medieval villagers had a more straightforward interpretation. They believed these warriors were possessed by something vast, furious, and definitely not house-trained. Some claimed that berserkers could transform into bears or wolves during combat. Others thought they were invulnerable to weapons, a belief that, while incorrect, was undeniably terrifying. Legends even suggested that their screams could make cattle faint. Given how medieval cattle often behaved, perhaps there was some truth to that. And then there's the infamous shield biting. Berserkers would gnaw on their shields as if auditioning for a medieval toothpaste commercial. Peasants witnessing this spectacle didn't think, an intimidation tactic. They thought, he's eating wood, next he'll come for us. Even other Vikings treated berserkers with caution. They were the kind of colleagues you avoided making eye contact with. The ones invited on raids but not to the after party, as no one wanted to witness their attempts at drinking calmly. To medieval society, berserkers were more than just peculiar. They were a force to be reckoned with. Imagine a scene from a time long past, where the air is thick with tension and fear. Villagers witness a terrifying sight: shirtless figures, roaring with primal energy, charging toward them. Instinctively, they think, I need to get to safety. After all, in an already challenging medieval life, the last thing anyone wants is red rain falling from the sky. Regular rain is troublesome enough. It ruins crops, floods roads, and turns fields into muddy quagmires that carry the scent of livestock regret. But when the rain turns red, the villagers can only conclude, ah yes, the apocalypse has arrived. Now let's explore the science behind this phenomenon. Desert dust storms can lift iron-rich particles high into the atmosphere, causing rainwater to take on a reddish hue when it mixes with moisture. However, medieval villagers lacked the scientific understanding we have today. Their perspective was much simpler. If something unusual occurred, it was either a divine message from God, a trick from the devil, or perhaps the antics of Margaret, the eccentric neighbor dabbling in forbidden magic. The first instance of blood rain in a village sparked a range of reactions, from horrified gasps to frantic screams. People rushed through the streets, crying out about signs, omens, plagues, and in one vivid account, exclaiming that the sky itself was bleeding. As you reflect on this moment, consider how fear and superstition shaped their understanding of the world. What would you have felt in their shoes? The sky appears to be bleeding, a notion that might seem entirely plausible if you're unfamiliar with iron dust. Crops, marked with crimson droplets, are deemed cursed. Laundry left out to dry is hastily burned, while animals adorned with these spots are thought to be touched by demons. Amidst the turmoil, a monk sits quietly, quill in hand, inscribing phrases like, "The heavens wept blood this day." This certainly does little to ease anyone's anxiety. In response, priests hurriedly gather for emergency prayer sessions. The entire congregation stands outside, drenched in the very rain they dread, pleading with the heavens for mercy as ominous red droplets fall around them. They claim to catch the scent of iron in the air, which, to be fair, they do. Yet they interpret this as the fragrance of divine disappointment. Meanwhile, resourceful villagers attempt to collect the rain, hoping it might actually be blood. Although it isn't, medieval logic dictates it resembles blood and behaves like rain, so it must be magical. Anyone who dares to propose a natural explanation is quickly silenced. Rational thought is unwelcome during a crisis. Interestingly, the animals remain unfazed. Sheep continue to graze peacefully in fields, oblivious to the red-streaked grass around them. Horses drink from crimson puddles, unfazed by their surroundings. Chickens gaze blankly at the sky, as if to say, "We've faced worse." Eventually, the storm passes. The sky ceases its bleeding, and villagers return to their daily lives still filled with plagues, taxes, questionable bread, and the occasional Viking raid. Blood rain feels catastrophic, yet it's not the end of the world. For medieval people, it's enough to send them into a panic that lasts a generation. If you think today's UFO sightings are strange, just wait until you hear what medieval monks recorded. These men weren't scrolling through social media late at night. They were sober, celibate, overworked, and perhaps a bit bored. So when they spotted something unusual in the sky, they didn't dismiss it as mere weather. They seized their quills, ready to document what they believed might be the end of everything. Medieval chronicles are filled with accounts of fiery wheels, shields of flame, glowing ships, and floating spheres traversing the heavens. They capture everything except the phrase, "I swear I'm not making this up," which is clearly implied. Imagine a monastery at dusk, where monks chant softly in a peaceful atmosphere. Suddenly, Brother Thomas bursts in, exclaiming, "The sky is on fire and spinning." The monks rush outside, gazing up at what is likely a meteor, halo, or some optical illusion. In their minds, they immediately conclude that God is either testing them, warning them, or perhaps just showing off. Imagine a monk calmly suggesting, "Perhaps it's just natural light in the clouds," yet he is quickly dismissed. After all, Medieval monks devoted their lives to meticulously copying manuscripts, not to accept mundane explanations. These reports, however, are anything but vague. Some monks produced sketches that reveal astonishing detail. You might see drawings of circular flaming shapes, swirling discs, bright arcs, and even forms that resemble glowing pizza crusts gliding across the sky. If one of them had sketched a classic flying saucer, historians today might still be reeling from the implications. The reactions varied widely. Some monks fell to their knees, convinced that the Last Judgment was upon them, mentally revisiting every time they had borrowed extra bread from the kitchen. Others eagerly grabbed their writing supplies, thrilled at the prospect of documenting something beyond the usual lineage of Brother Matthew begetting Brother Peter, who in turn begets Brother Simon. A few bold souls even engaged in debates about the theological significance, proposing ideas ranging from angelic warfare to God illuminating the sky for dramatic flair. Meanwhile, the peasants witnessing these extraordinary events offered simpler interpretations. They saw it as a sign, a harbinger of doom, or perhaps, yet again, Gerald's fault. Imagine wandering through a medieval forest at night. First off, congratulations, you're in a precarious situation. As you navigate the shadows, you might catch a glimpse of something faintly glowing in the distance. A soft, eerie green light beckons, resembling a lost soul trapped within a log. Today, we might casually identify it as bioluminescent fungus. However, medieval villagers would have a very different reaction. They would insist, "No way, that's a spirit. We need to leave." This mysterious glow, known as foxfire, results from fungi that emit light through a natural chemical reaction. But of course, the people of that time had no way of knowing this. They were left with two possibilities: ghosts or even angrier ghosts. In those days, when strange phenomena appeared in the sky, medieval peasants often pointed fingers at someone named Gerald. Modern scientists, with their advanced understanding, attribute such occurrences to meteors, auroras, ice crystals, and atmospheric reflections, concepts far beyond the comprehension of monks. Yet, the monks' UFO diaries remain a fascinating glimpse into their world. They are filled with sincere, detailed, and often bewildered observations. Were these sightings aliens, weather phenomena, or simply medieval individuals in dire need of distractions? It's hard to say for certain. What we do know is that when something glowed, spun, or zipped across the medieval sky, the monks didn't just witness it, they documented it. So as you tread through the darkness, remember the stories of those who came before you. Perhaps you'll find that the past still whispers through the shadows. Imagine you stumble upon a stump glowing green, almost as if it's inviting you to solve a riddle. In that moment, you might drop everything, scream, and rush home so quickly that you feel like you've invented cardio long before its time. The tales spread like wildfire, ironically faster than any medieval fire safety could manage. Villagers whisper, the dead are haunting the forest. Some claim these glowing logs are enchanted by fairies, which sounds charming until you remember that medieval fairies were more like tiny demons with peculiar pastimes. Then, the church steps in, and things take a turn. Priests caution villagers against approaching the glowing wood, warning it could corrupt their souls. It's amusing, really, considering the greatest threat was probably just tripping over a root and taking a tumble. Some believe that foxfire marks the spots where evil spirits hold their meetings. Others think it's where drowned souls gather at night. A few even insist that the glow signifies the forest itself is alive and watching. To be fair, medieval forests had their own ways of observing, with wolves and bears looking at humans like they were a snack. Yet, amid the fear, foxfire turns out to be surprisingly useful. Travelers use it as a natural lantern, even if they aren't thrilled about carrying around pieces of haunted wood. As you reflect on these stories, consider how folklore shapes our understanding of the world around us. It's fascinating, isn't it? As you dive into this tale, imagine the flickering light of a campfire casting shadows around brave soldiers. They find a peculiar glow illuminating their camps at night, yet only the bold dare to sleep near it. After all, who wants to rest beside something that glows and seems to whisper, even if it's not truly speaking? Villagers, filled with stories and superstitions, believe it whispers, while children, untroubled by the dangers of the medieval world, are drawn to it. These young adventurers poke at the strange phenomenon, known today as a harmless fungus, carrying pieces home and delighting in their glowing appearances, much to their parents' dismay. To the medieval mind, this glow is far from innocent. It's seen as a cosmic warning. The forest, in its strange way, seems to say, "Turn back. You do not belong here." In a time already fraught with challenges like plagues, taxes, and Viking raids, the idea of spontaneous human combustion terrifies villagers. Life is hard enough without the threat of someone bursting into flames without warning, interrupting their already difficult evenings. Rumors spread through the towns, tales of people who had been sitting by the fire, enjoying a drink or taking a peaceful nap, only to suddenly become engulfed in flames. The details matter little to the villagers. The fear is enough to keep them awake at night. As you reflect on these stories, consider how fear and wonder intertwine in the shadows of history. What lessons do these tales hold for us today? Why should we consider the complexities of fear when it seems to act so swiftly? In today's world, the reasons might seem straightforward. A lamp falls, a candle spills, perhaps a little too much alcohol is involved, and suddenly fabrics ignite as if they are in league with the flames. However, for those living in medieval times, the explanations were far less mundane. They embraced dramatic narratives. When a villager caught fire, the community didn't lean toward the possibility of an accident. Instead, they leaped to the conclusion that the devil had claimed another soul, even if the individual was sitting right beside a candle, or if the candle rested on their lap, or if warnings echoed around them to stay awake near open flames. The conversation would shift to witches. Witches represented the medieval equivalent of "let's blame the weather." Someone might exclaim, "This is witchcraft," and everyone would solemnly agree, turning a blind eye to the evident dangers surrounding them. Witnesses would insist that the body burned with an intensity beyond the ordinary. This perspective is understandable when you realize that homes were constructed from dry wood, and clothing was often little more than flammable blankets drenched in grease. Yet, the villagers of that era shunned logic. To them, logic was suspicious, tinged with the scent of sorcery. Monks, ever eager for stories that piqued interest, meticulously documented the harrowing accounts of victims reduced to mere ashes and limbs. As you reflect on this, consider how fear influences perception and belief. What stories do we tell ourselves today? Imagine a scene, a pile of ash and two untouched lower legs, quietly positioned in the center of a room, as if they've chosen to remain apart from the chaos surrounding them. This vivid image often appears in historical accounts, yet these narratives overlook crucial details. Consider how we consistently leave open flames near intoxicated individuals. Perhaps it's time to rethink our choices, like wearing wool soaked in lamp oil or relying on fire to illuminate our homes. Such practices are inherently dangerous. Medieval villagers often preferred supernatural explanations for these incidents. They found the idea of spontaneous combustion more thrilling than confronting the reality that their homes resembled matchboxes. The fear spread so extensively that some villages even implemented rules banning anyone deemed flammable from approaching fire. This label could apply to anyone who drank, sneezed, or simply existed. Today we know that spontaneous combustion is a myth, yet for those living in medieval times, the fear of igniting at any moment added an unsettling thrill to life. If you believe that medieval Europe was predictable, think again. One day in the 12th century, in the village of Woolpit, two children with green skin emerged from a wolf pit. Yes, a wolf pit, because in medieval England, the solution to wolf problems was to dig deep holes and wait for the wolves to fall in. Reflect on this fascinating glimpse into the past, where the extraordinary mingled with the everyday. Instead of encountering wolves this time, the villagers find a group of children who seem entirely out of place. These kids speak a language that no one understands, refuse every type of food except for beans, and appear as if they have sprouted from a magical vegetable garden. The villagers, in true medieval fashion, respond with panic. They don't stop to ask questions, they simply react. Initially, they offer the children bread. The kids turn it down. Then they try meat, only to be met with a firm, absolutely not. Vegetables, only beans forever. These children are, in essence, the world's first committed vegans, long before it became a trend. And as the villagers gather, they whisper among themselves, speculating, are they fairies? Are they forest spirits? Are they demons? Meanwhile, the children wonder why everyone around them smells like damp hay. The most striking feature is their green skin, which sends shockwaves through the medieval minds. People already believed in elves, demons, and glowing woods, so the presence of green children feels like a confirmation that the universe is simply bored and improvising. Some villagers speculate that the kids must come from an underground world, while others think they might be cursed. A few merely shrug, for the medieval experience has taught them that nothing is truly surprising anymore. Eventually, a local noble takes the children in, drawn to their mystery, much like how modern collectors are captivated by limited edition sneakers. As you listen, imagine a time when two mysterious children appeared in a medieval village. Under the care of a kind guardian, these children slowly learned English and began to adapt to their new surroundings. Their once vibrant green hue faded as they transitioned from a diet of beans. This suggests that medieval England stumbled upon the fundamentals of nutrition long before anyone else realized its importance. Tragically, the boy did not survive for long, leaving behind a cloud of unanswered questions and no explanations. The girl, however, grew up and learned to speak the language. When asked about their origins, she offered a vague account. She spoke of a place called St. Martin's Land, where everything was dim and green. Was this a real location? A metaphor? A figment of a child's imagination? Or perhaps a translation error? The truth remains elusive. Historians today debate various theories, ranging from malnutrition and liver disease to the possibility of an isolated community. Yet, the villagers of that time preferred the more fantastical explanation. They were from another world. That's the essence of the Middle Ages. When two mysterious children suddenly appeared, villagers didn't question it. They simply added it to the list of strange happenings. Picture yourself as a medieval villager, stepping outside for a tranquil morning, perhaps hoping that today will be uneventful. Suddenly, the sky opens, and a trout lands on your head, or maybe a frog, or even 50 frogs, all bewildered aquatic creatures tumbling from the sky. What would you think? The unexpected was part of life, and each day held the potential for the extraordinary. Welcome to animal rain, a remarkable phenomenon of nature that once left medieval villagers utterly perplexed. Today, we understand that storms can lift small creatures from bodies of water, carrying them through the air and releasing them upon unsuspecting towns below. However, in those times, people lacked the scientific knowledge we have now. They relied on intuition and folklore, interpreting such events as the work of witches, or perhaps, if the frogs were particularly lively, very angry witches. Picture this: a farmer is nurturing his cabbages when suddenly a frog splashes down beside him. He glances up just in time to witness another frog falling from the sky like a tiny green meteor. In mere moments, a shower of frogs descends, each one landing with a wet thud that seems to say, "I did not agree to this." The villagers react in sheer panic. They rush to cover their heads, dash indoors, and fervently pray. In rare instances, some brave souls attempt to catch the falling creatures as if they were Pokemon from a medieval fantasy. Many believed these animals were omens of famine or disease, while others viewed the frogs as soldiers in a dark army. One chronicler boldly claimed that fish rain was a clear sign of humanity's sins reaching even the ponds. Such interpretations reveal the deep connection between people and the mysteries of nature, a bond that continues to intrigue us today. Priests hurry to the scene, their robes fluttering as they seek to decipher the messages from the heavens. Typically, they settle on something vague, like repent, a mantra that seems to apply to nearly every situation. Meanwhile, the animals are having a truly terrible day. One moment they swim peacefully, and the next they are whisked into the sky, only to be dropped miles away into a field, on a roof, or on particularly unlucky days, into a bucket of milk. It's no wonder medieval frogs always appear annoyed in manuscripts. Chickens chase the new arrivals, while cats investigate with curiosity. Dogs bark at the sky, as if demanding that it stop hurling objects. Yet, once the rain subsides, medieval folks revert to their usual routine. They clean up, panic a little more, blame the peculiar neighbor, Margaret, and record it all as proof that the world is out of order. To us, the phenomenon of animals raining down might seem unusual, but can be explained. However, for medieval people, it felt like the heavens were engaging in a comedic improvisation, albeit with questionable timing. If you were a peasant in that era, you didn't need theater for entertainment. Just watching a fully armored knight struggle to cope in the midst of a sweltering heat wave provided all the drama you could hope for. Imagine this: a blazing summer day, the air thick with heat, and the fields practically steaming. Even the chickens seem to be wilting under the sun. Suddenly, you spot a knight, making his way across the horizon, clad in full plate armor. It's like witnessing a medieval sauna on horseback. Peasants pause their work, not out of respect, but sheer bewilderment. After all, these knights seem to be encased in cast iron, sweating profusely under their heavy metal shells. Picture a village blacksmith who could easily cook a meal on a knight's chest plate with little effort. Yet the knights refuse to remove even a single piece of their armor. It's not about safety, it's about pride and a complete lack of awareness regarding heat stroke. A knight might be drenched in sweat, swaying in the saddle, gasping for air like a kettle on the boil, yet he insists, "Nay, good sir, I am perfectly comfortable." Meanwhile, the horse beneath him is likely questioning its life choices. The peasants watching this spectacle are practically feeling the heat themselves, and the blacksmiths, who truly understand metal, glance on in horror. They murmur to one another, "He's going to melt his insides," while the knight boldly declares, This armor is my honor. And just as he dramatically faints into a nearby haystack, the scene becomes even more chaotic during tournaments. Imagine knights clanging around the field, resembling overheated tin cans. Some wear padded under armor, which serves as medieval insulation. It's great in winter, but a disaster in summer. You can almost hear them sizzling under the sun. And the irony? They train in this heat. Squires, tasked with assisting their masters, learn valuable skills. They figure out how to drag an unconscious nobleman out of his armor, how to remove a helmet stuck from sweat, and how to politely ignore the smell of wool that's been baked in the sun. There are accounts of knights collapsing mid-joust, their armor reaching temperatures typically meant for pottery kilns. Some have to be carried away, their legs awkwardly protruding from their metal casings like fallen statues. Peasants watch with confusion, unable to grasp the concepts of chivalry or noble honor. To them, it's baffling why these wealthy men would willingly endure such suffering. If you weren't sweating buckets inside a portable oven, could you even call yourself a knight? To the peasants, witnessing a knight proudly march in metal during a heat wave is one of the strangest, most humorous sights of the Middle Ages. It's a vivid reminder of the peculiarities of nobility and the lengths they go for their ideals. Wouldn't you agree? Imagine a time when the landscapes were filled with shadows and whispers of the past. The Middle Ages, a period steeped in both beauty and danger, brought with it a unique phenomenon: haunted landscapes. After fierce battles, particularly the chaotic ones, strange lights began to flicker above the fields at night. These eerie orbs, glowing in shades of blue, green, and white, became known as corpse lights or will-o'-the-wisps. Today, we might label them swamp gas or bioluminescent decay, but back then, people steered clear of such places, convinced they were cursed. Picture yourself as a medieval traveler, making your way home after sunset. The world is fraught with danger, wolves lurking in the shadows, bandits waiting to strike, and the ever-present specter of plague. As you navigate the dimly lit paths, a gentle glowing orb catches your eye, hovering over last month's battlefield. It sways softly, glowing brighter with each movement, and you can't help but feel a chill run down your spine, reminding you of the will you never updated. These mysterious lights often appeared in wet, decomposing grounds, where gases from organic matter would sometimes ignite or reflect light, creating ghostly orbs that even the bravest knights might question their fate over. Villagers witnessing these phenomena reacted with a blend of fear and certainty, declaring them to be the spirits of the dead. What would you have thought in such a moment? Would you have dared to approach the light, or would you have turned back, heart racing, convinced the land was forever haunted? In the echoes of the past, the stories of these lights remind us of the mysteries that still linger in our world. Imagine a world filled with shadows and whispers, where mysterious lights beckon you into the unknown. You might think of these as demons or fairies, leading you to your doom. Perhaps you wonder, could it be something deeper, something rooted in the past? In medieval Europe, rational thinking was scarce. Parents spun tales about corpse lights, cautioning their children with warnings like, "Don't venture out at night," or "Those soul lights will drag you into the swamp." It's ironic, isn't it? The true danger often lay within the swamp itself. Villagers genuinely believed these lights were trying to entice them, and really, who could blame them? Walking toward flickering lights in a foggy marsh is a recipe for disaster. Even today, countless souls lost their footing, or worse, while chasing the ethereal glow that whispered, "Come closer." Monks of the time wrote passionately about these corpse lights, depicting them as wandering souls in search of peace. Knights spoke of them as the spirits of fallen warriors, forever watching over the battlefield. Fishermen, too, caught sight of these enigmatic glows near bogs, convinced that fairies were plotting ambushes. Yet, in our modern world, scientists offer a different story. They explain that these lights are merely methane reacting with phosphenes from decaying organic matter, a decidedly unmagical explanation. But for the villagers of the past, corpse lights were a haunting reminder of the night, a time when spirits, demons, and glowing orbs of danger roamed free, not to mention the occasional fox, perhaps wearing a lost shoe. So what do you think? Is there still magic in the shadows, or do we simply see the science behind the mystery? The Middle Ages can be daunting enough during the day, but at night, when ghostly lights flicker across desolate fields, the atmosphere feels charged with something unsettling. If you ever find yourself wandering into a medieval forest, though you really should think twice, you might encounter one of the most peculiar figures of that era, the wild man, or woodwoe. Picture a medieval version of Bigfoot, but less enigmatic and more bewildered, covered in hair, wielding a club, and exuding the essence of someone who has completely avoided paying taxes. These wild men appear frequently in medieval artwork, depicted as towering, shaggy figures lurking at the edges of forests, clutching sticks and gazing with an expression that seems to say, "I didn't expect to see anyone here." Some tales portray them as giants, while others describe them as hermits who may have embraced the natural lifestyle a bit too fervently. Regardless of their backstory, they instilled fear in the hearts of villagers, as medieval forests were already fraught with dangers: wolves, bears, bandits, and treacherous plants. The last thing anyone needed was a hairy philosopher wandering about, mumbling to trees. Most encounters with these wild men follow a similar narrative. A peasant enters the woods to collect firewood. Suddenly, rustling catches his attention. He turns, and there, towering before him, stands a hulking, hair-covered figure, brandishing a club the size of a small child. What do you think he felt in that moment? Fear? Curiosity? Perhaps a mix of both? Imagine a scene where peasants react with immediate regret, quickly turning to prayer as they sprint away. Villagers share tales of wild men, those mysterious figures who steal livestock, uproot trees, or shout cryptic phrases like, "The forest knows you." It's a rather unhelpful statement when you're simply trying to gather mushrooms, isn't it? Some medieval scholars believed these wild men were magical beings, guardians of the forest, or perhaps lost souls suffering from spiritual imbalance. Others thought they were merely hermits who chose to forego bathing, haircuts, and social interaction. Honestly, both ideas could be equally true. Wild men became a staple of medieval festivals, with villages hosting parades featuring someone dressed as a woodwoe, complete with glued-on fur and a penchant for yelling at townsfolk. The creativity of medieval entertainment knew no bounds. Artists loved to depict these figures, muscular, wild-looking men who seemed to have strong opinions about moss. They often appeared brandishing clubs, being chased or attempting to kidnap maidens, as medieval storytellers had a knack for weaving in elements of abduction. Yet, the most puzzling aspect is that many wild men were likely just ordinary people. They could have been hermits, hunters, or those who simply wished to escape society. Perhaps they were just individuals who declared, "I need some time alone," and took that sentiment to an extreme. Imagine yourself as a medieval villager living on the edge of civilization and wilderness. The wild man looms large in your imagination, a symbol of how easily one can slip into chaos, perhaps just a few days without a bath, away from becoming something unrecognizable. This figure is both terrifying and a reminder of the fragile balance of life in the Middle Ages. Now, picture a moment of revelation. For many, the first clear sight of their own reflection is not a gentle encounter, it's more akin to a psychological jump scare. Mirrors, or rather polished metal plates mimicking them, start to make their appearance during this era. Reactions vary widely, from fascination to sheer horror. Before polished metal, glimpses of oneself were often distorted, seen only in puddles or shiny objects that offered little clarity. These reflections were vague, more like peering into a foggy potato than seeing your true self. So, when a polished metal disc suddenly reveals a clear human face, the villagers are caught off guard. Imagine being a farmer who hasn't seen a clear reflection in 3 decades. A merchant hands you that polished disc, and as you gaze into it, confusion washes over you. You might find yourself asking, "Who is this stranger staring back at me?" Some villagers even believe their souls are trapped within the metal, a haunting thought that adds to the mystery of this newfound clarity. Some people believed that mirrors held a life of their own. A few even thought that demons resided within them, quietly mocking everyone's hairstyles. Given the medieval hair trends, that idea might just make sense. To complicate things further, early mirrors didn't offer perfect reflections. They distorted faces just enough to create panic. A villager might glance into a mirror and see one eyebrow higher than the other, or a head that looked slightly off, leading them to conclude they were cursed, possessed, or simply having a very bad day. Then there were the nobles, the only ones who could afford these early mirrors. They became the trendsetters of medieval vanity. They would gaze at their reflections for hours, adjusting their feathered hats and stroking their unfortunate mustaches, declaring, "My beauty is a divine blessing." Meanwhile, peasants watched, thinking, "Sir, you look like a damp turkey." Yet, mirrors also ignited profound philosophical discussions. Monks penned treatises on the morality of self-reflection. Priests cautioned that vanity was a sin, and some scholars pondered whether a mirror could capture your essence. Spoiler alert, it cannot, not even on Mondays. As always, children were the most fearless, unbothered by the reflections staring back at them. Imagine standing before a mirror for the very first time. You might stick out your tongue at your reflection, wave enthusiastically, or wonder if this mirror person lives in a different world. While parents might panic, children remain fascinated. Picture one villager who, after seeing his own reflection, exclaims, "Ah, so this is why Margaret won't marry me." The arrival of mirrors allowed people not only to see their faces, but also to recognize their flaws, expressions, and at times, their own disappointments. For us, mirrors are commonplace, but for those in the Middle Ages, they were portals to mystery, soul traps, or perhaps the earliest form of a selfie. This is what makes the Middle Ages so captivating. Even something as simple as seeing your own reflection felt extraordinary. Now, envision Rome from a distance. Its majestic temples shine in the sunlight, and its aqueducts stretch across the landscape like the bones of giants. The city's reputation resonates throughout the Mediterranean. Yet, when you step closer, you discover a different reality. Rome transforms into a cacophony of noise, tension, and barely contained chaos. With over 1 million people crammed into narrow alleyways, decaying tenements, and bustling open-air markets, fresh produce sits side by side with mounds of refuse. Isn't it fascinating how perspective can change everything? Imagine a world where a simple shove, a drunken insult, or a lingering political grudge can transform a quiet street corner into a battleground. This is the reality that many citizens of Rome face. In this bustling city, fear is as common as bread. The concept of a modern police force is non-existent. It isn't until the reign of Augustus that urban cohorts emerge, and even then, they resemble more of a military presence than peacekeepers. During the late Republic, law enforcement relies on those with wealth, strength, or influence. Senators employ their own guards, and affluent households hire private enforcers. Ordinary citizens walk briskly, keeping their heads down, hoping to avoid entanglement and conflicts between rival factions. If you find yourself in Rome at night, you carry a lamp, a knife, or perhaps a prayer. Sometimes you carry all three. This atmosphere of insecurity creates an ideal breeding ground for gangs. Young men without jobs, freed individuals seeking quick gains, and political aspirants hungry for power all discover opportunities in the city's shadows. Tension simmers just beneath the surface. A procession can quickly escalate into a riot. A funeral may transform into an act of intimidation, and a political meeting could erupt into chaos, with clubs and stones flying instead of votes. Even the simplest errands carry an edge. A visit to the bars, taverns, or public latrines means navigating a world filled with gamblers, thieves, hired thugs, and the desperate. As you reflect on this vivid picture of life in ancient Rome, consider what it means to live in such a tumultuous environment. How does fear shape the choices you make? The government is aware of this reality, but the ruling elite understands that violence can serve a purpose. For ambitious politicians, having street muscle is more cost-effective than hiring soldiers. These groups are often more loyal than voters and much easier to mobilize. A hired gang doesn't get bogged down by legal issues. They simply arrive, make their presence known, act decisively, and vanish into the bustling crowds of Subura or Aventine before anyone can pinpoint them. This is the essence of Rome. Beneath the grandeur of marble, the bustling forums, and the eloquent speeches of the Senate, true power often lies in who commands the streets. As the Republic nears its final decades, these streets are increasingly falling under the influence of men who grasp one crucial truth: fear is a form of currency, and in Rome it is highly profitable. Before these gangs became tools of political terror, the collegia were simply ordinary associations. They were trade groups, neighborhood clubs, funeral societies, and social circles for craftsmen, merchants, and freed men. At their best, they functioned as Rome's community support networks, where individuals pooled resources for funerals, organized feasts, worshipped local deities, and safeguarded their shared interests. Yet, in a city as volatile as Rome, innocence rarely lasts. As the late Republic unfolds, many collegia have strayed from their initial intentions, morphing into disciplined, loyal, and often aggressive factions. These groups possess established structures, leaders, treasuries, meeting halls, and members who are accustomed to acting in unison. When influential politicians sought ready-made street armies, the collegia emerged as an obvious choice. A local carpenters' guild, with a few discreet payments and promises, could swiftly transform into a unit of supporters, armed with clubs, ready to silence rivals, intimidate voters, or disrupt an opponent's assembly. Once money began to flow, loyalty solidified into something far more fierce. The neighborhoods of Rome, particularly the crowded Subura, became sharply divided along factional lines. Collegia aligned with a senator or tribune often patrolled the streets, safeguarding local voters while making it clear which side they should remain loyal to. Outsiders, particularly those who supported rival factions, faced harassment or violence under the cover of night. Some collegia operated like organized crime syndicates, collecting payments, resolving disputes with fists or blades, and exerting control over taverns, gambling houses, and local markets. What might appear as a simple association of bakers or tanners could, in reality, function as a neighborhood militia. Take a moment to reflect on how power can shape communities in unexpected ways. Would you have anticipated such transformations in these seemingly benign groups? The Senate occasionally attempts to ban these collegia, recognizing the inherent danger they pose. However, Rome is vast and chaotic, making such laws ineffective. Disbanded groups simply go underground, with outlawed meetings relocating to private homes, bathhouses, or taverns. Politicians who benefit the most quietly ensure that enforcement is lenient when it suits them. A turning point arises when ambitious leaders realize they can leverage collegia not just to influence local districts, but to dominate citywide politics. A coordinated group can disrupt elections, escort candidates, intimidate rivals from the forum, and display strength during public gatherings. The collegia have drifted far from their original purpose. They are no longer mere social clubs. Instead, they have transformed into proto-gangs, organized, equipped, and fiercely loyal to their financial backers. In Rome, the streets now belong to those who command the most bodies, the loudest chants, and the heaviest clubs. Into this volatile environment steps a man who will elevate the collegia to a new level of danger. Publius Caius Pulcher is not the first Roman politician to employ thugs, but he is the first to turn street violence into a political art form. Born into a patrician family, but yearning for the adoration of the masses, Caius rebrands himself as a champion of the common people. He reduces the price of grain, confronts aristocratic rivals, and ensures his name resonates through every corner of the Suburra. Yet, his true brilliance and the underlying threat lies in how he skillfully wields the power of the collegia. When he takes on the role of tribune of the plebs in 58 BCE, he legalizes these organizations that the Senate had previously outlawed. But this move is far from altruistic. Caius knows precisely what he is doing. He transforms neighborhood associations into a fiercely loyal army. Under his influence, these Caius grow rapidly. Their leaders rise to prominence. Members receive generous compensation, and their loyalty is rewarded with power. In just a few months, Caius commands the most formidable gang network Rome has ever seen. With this newfound strength, he dominates the public spaces of Rome. His followers surround him like a monarch, chanting his name, brandishing clubs, and dispersing crowds. Elections turn into spectacles of intimidation. Rival speakers in the forum find their voices drowned out or are driven away by the cacophony of violence. Senators who dare to oppose him shy away from public appearances, fearing ambushes. Even Cicero, one of Rome's most eloquent orators, flees the city when Caius sets his sights on him. This is a time when power shifts and loyalty is bought, and Caius stands at the center of it all. Would you dare to explore the depths of ambition and the price of influence? His house is reduced to ashes, his property taken, and his allies threatened. Caius's gang isn't just large, it's organized. Members train together, march in formation, and follow orders with precision. They control key districts, monitor important intersections, and keep an eye on political gatherings. During feast days or public festivals, they show up in force, making it clear to the city and the Senate that Caius wields real power, a power measured not in laws, but in fists. Yet Caius's bold rise stirs equal and opposite forces. His audacity alarms rivals, especially those who believe the Republic should be governed from the Senate chamber, not the streets. In time, One man will step forward to challenge him directly, matching gang against gang, blow for blow. For now, though, Rome belongs to Claius. His voice resonates through its streets. His men dominate its neighborhoods, and his style of politics signifies a turning point, a moment when street violence shifts from a mere tool of politics to its driving force. If Claius is the charismatic populist who transforms Rome's streets into his personal stage, then Titus Aeneas Milo is the blunt hammer poised to shatter that stage apart. Milo embodies everything Claius is not. Imagine a figure who embodies aristocracy, exuding an air of aggression, completely indifferent to winning the hearts of the people. Instead of charming crowds, he instills fear. As the Senate and conservative elites come to realize, Claius has created a force beyond their control. In this tumultuous landscape, Milo emerges as the perfect instrument for their ambitions. With the powerful backing of Pompey the Great, Milo ascends to prominence. Armed with senatorial funds, he assembles his own gangs, just as organized, just as violent, but far more disciplined. His followers are not mere thugs, they are gladiators, bodyguards, and veterans from private armies. These are men accustomed to pain, to the harsh realities of life, and to the belief that the law is a privilege for the weak. While Claius's collegia resemble ragtag street mobs, Milo's men operate as a well-oiled machine of street soldiers. The clash between these factions is not just likely, it is certain. The air in Rome is thick with tension as markets, taverns, baths, and the forum itself buzz with anticipation. As Claius's men approach a political assembly, Milo stands ready on the opposite side, prepared to defend his territory. When Claius attempts to deliver a speech, Milo's gang lurks nearby, ready to turn political discourse into chaos. Clubs, stones, slings, and fists become the new dialect of politics. On election days, many citizens choose to stay home, fully aware that the ballot box is not theirs to claim, but rather belongs to whichever gang asserts its dominance first. Can you feel the tension? The stakes are high, and the streets of Rome are alive with the echoes of impending conflict. The rivalry intensifies with alarming speed. Ambushes replace mere arguments. Rumors swirl that both men obsessively track each other's movements, sending scouts throughout Rome to report sightings. A simple walk in the city transforms into a tactical maneuver. Even priests and public officials tread lightly. Temples, marketplaces, and public festivals no longer feel safe. What truly makes Milo dangerous is his unwavering confidence. While Claius works on his image and popularity, Milo embraces the raw power of intimidation. He walks the streets openly armed, accompanied by bands of gladiators. Crowds don't part for admiration. They do so from a primal instinct for survival. For the first time, Claius confronts an opponent who does not fear him, who cannot be bullied, and who will not back down. Rome has become a chessboard, with two kings moving their gangs like pieces, each poised for a catastrophic collision. Everyone senses that when Claius and Milo finally come face to face without restraint, the outcome will reverberate through the Republic. By the late 50s BCE, Rome no longer embodies a capital of laws and order. Instead, it resembles a zone under siege. Ordinary citizens learn to navigate the city like a battlefield map. The suburb belongs to Claius, nestled among the Palatine slopes, while the path to the forum leans toward Milo. This forum, once considered the sacred heart of Roman civic life, is a place where few linger unless absolutely necessary. To traverse the city feels like a gamble with fate. The wrong street at the wrong hour might land you in the midst of a street battle, clad in sandals instead of armor. Conflict escalates gradually, then suddenly, it starts with chants, insults, and fistfights. But as the stakes rise, fists are no longer the deciding factor. Gangs become more organized. Clubs are now standard weapons. Sling bullets emerge, and some thugs conceal daggers beneath their tunics. Gladiators, men trained to kill for the sake of entertainment, become highly sought-after assets. To the Senate's horror, Rome's sacred processions and religious festivals morph into invitations for violence. A simple funeral could ignite a riot, while a public speech may end in chaos. Temples, once revered as sanctuaries, lose their sanctity. Even the priests hesitate to intervene when gangs clash outside their sacred steps. Claeus masters the art of overwhelming noise and spectacle. When he makes his way through Rome, his followers fill the streets, chanting his name, waving torches, blocking traffic, and intimidating anyone who dares to oppose him. This is the world he has crafted, a world where fear and fervor intertwine. Milo doesn't respond with grand gestures. Instead, he employs calculated strikes. His men operate in smaller, more focused units, like gladiator squads, ready to disperse crowds with brutal efficiency. When the two factions clash, the violence erupts immediately and devastatingly. Lives are lost, and many are left injured, yet neither side shows any sign of backing down. The government finds itself effectively paralyzed. Senators attempt to convene, only to discover they are surrounded by armed gangs. Voting becomes impossible, as debates are drowned out by the chaos of shouting mobs. Some senators arrive with their own hired guards for protection, while others choose to stay home, citing illness to avoid the danger. Rome, once a proud republic, has become a hostage to two men and their street armies. The citizens now keep watch for signs of smoke in the sky. Another tavern goes up in flames. Another brawl spirals out of control. Another district falls into chaos for the night. The city is no longer governed by the Senate or by tradition. It is ruled by momentum and fear. Every resident feels the same unsettling truth. This cannot last forever. Eventually, something or someone will break the cycle. The confrontation everyone dreads finally arrives on a cold January day in 52 BCE. It begins not with a calculated ambush, but rather with a twist of fate, or so the tales recount. As you journey along the Aeon Way, picture Claeus returning to Rome after visiting one of his estates. Coincidentally, you also spot Milo, flanked by his usual entourage of heavily armed gladiators. In a different time, two men crossing paths on a road would be a mere inconvenience. Yet, in the current climate of political gang warfare in Rome, this meeting ignites tension like a spark in a powder keg. Accounts of what unfolds vary, shaped by the perspective of those telling the tale. Some assert that Claeus's men instigated the brawl, while others argue that it was Milo's gladiators who provoked the chaos. What remains undeniable is that insults fly, weapons are drawn, and pandemonium ensues. Travelers scatter in fear, mules bolt in panic, and servants dive into ditches for safety. This road, once a path for armies seeking glory, now bears witness to a brutal street fight worthy of a Colosseum's sandpit. Claeus finds himself wounded early in the fray. Sensing the danger, he flees into a nearby inn, but Milo's men are relentless, intent on ending this rivalry once and for all. They drag Claeus out, bloodied and defenseless, and on the stones of the Aeon Way, far from the Senate and the adoring crowds, Publius Claeus Pulchar meets his end. In mere moments, the most feared street boss in Rome lies dead, a stark reminder of the violence that permeates this world. death does not bring an end to chaos. Instead, it ignites it. The news of Claius's murder spreads like wildfire, igniting outrage among his supporters. Streets fill with passionate crowds as his body is returned to Rome, transforming into a rallying symbol of their grief and anger. In the Forum, voices rise in a chorus of vengeance. Stones are hurled, and fingers point at the Senate for the killing. What begins as a funeral quickly spirals into a riotous scene. As emotions heighten, Claius's followers seize the moment, using his death as a catalyst to set the Senate House ablaze. Flames engulf the Curia Hostilia, consuming centuries of political history in a furious blaze. The streets of Rome, already unstable, seem to teeter on the edge of civil collapse. Milo tries to defend himself legally, but with Claius's supporters raging and the Senate gripped by fear, reason has fled the city. Gangs reach a boiling point, and order evaporates entirely. Rome feels leaderless, lawless, and dangerously close to unraveling. Change is urgent, yet Claius's death does not quiet the city. It detonates it instead. For years, the citizens have lived under the weight of gang rivalry, but with Claius gone, that tension snaps violently. It's as if an entire population exhales in rage, flooding the streets, grieving, furious, and desperate for revenge. What once began as a political rivalry has transformed into something primal, a raw cry from the lower classes. They see Claius as their protector, flawed and brutal, yet undeniably theirs. The Forum has turned into a scene of chaos. Mobs surge into the Curia Hostilia, the very core of Rome's political life, igniting it with Claius's funeral pyre. Flames leap into the winter air, consuming roof beams, statues, and centuries of documents, along with the symbolic dignity of the Republic. The Senate watches, powerless, as their revered meeting house collapses into glowing ruins. The message is clear. Street power now reigns over Rome, not the senators in their white togas. But the violence doesn't end there. Claius loyalists patrol the city, attacking anyone suspected of supporting Milo. Vendors hastily close their stalls, taverns board up their windows, and families lock themselves in their insulae, praying that the turmoil will pass them by. The night sky over Rome glows orange from scattered fires, while screams reverberate through the streets, where the only law belongs to whichever gang arrives first, wielding torches and clubs. The Senate, usually caught up in endless debates, now finds itself paralyzed by fear. Many senators have fled to the countryside, seeking refuge from the chaos. As you reflect on the tumultuous state of Rome, consider how some have locked themselves away in their villas, while others have tried to gather, only to scatter at the sight of approaching mobs. The once proud capital of the Republic now resembles a hostage situation, where every decision is stalled and every proposal is drowned in fear. Leadership is sorely lacking, with one consul already dead and the other overwhelmed. Power has all but vanished. Elections are impossible, assemblies are non-existent, and even basic functions like grain distribution and justice hearings have come to a standstill. Rome is precariously close to collapse, and everyone is acutely aware of it. Amid this chaos, a troubling notion begins to circulate among the senators. They whisper that the Republic needs a strong hand, someone who commands authority, possesses soldiers, and can enter the Forum without fear of being engulfed by the chaos outside. Though they hesitate to speak his name, there is a shared understanding of who they mean. Pompey, the same Pompey who once held sway over 3 continents, who supported Milo, and who now watches as Rome descends into turmoil. In this moment, even the senators, men who thrive on debate, find consensus on one crucial point: what will happen next? The chaos needs to end. In this moment of desperation, the Republic turns to Pompey the Great, bestowing upon him extraordinary powers to restore order. It's a move steeped in irony. A government that fears one-man rule now seeks it. Pompey, cautious yet calculating, accepts this burden. With his newfound authority, he reshapes Rome's security forces, most notably giving rise to the Praetorian Guard. Originally, the term Praetorian referred to elite soldiers who protected generals in battle. However, Pompey transforms them into a formidable urban force, permanently stationed in and around Rome. Their mission is clear: to eliminate gang violence, restore stability, and ensure that senators can walk the streets without fear of being coerced into political agreements. For the average Roman, the arrival of the Praetorians feels like a thunderclap. These are not mere thugs wielding clubs or boastful gladiators. Instead, the Praetorians' polished armor, march in formation, and embody genuine military discipline. As they patrol, the sound of their boots reverberates like a warning. The era of unchecked street violence is drawing to a close. Gangs that once roamed taverns and marketplaces now scatter at the mere sight of a Praetorian helmet. Their presence alone shifts the balance of power in the city. Milo's men find themselves suddenly hunted, unable to roam freely. They face confrontation, dispersion, arrests, and are forced back into hiding. Caius's remaining loyalists fare no better. Without their leader, and in the presence of a professional military force, they collapse almost instantly. Areas like the Subura, once bustling centers of factional control, are swept clean with ruthless efficiency. Yet the return to order is anything but gentle. The Taurians are soldiers, not police. They enforce Pompey's will with an uncompromising force. Raids become frequent, streets are searched, taverns empty, and suspects are detained without ceremony. Citizens experience a mix of relief and unease. Rome has traded mob rule for militarized authority. In the immediate aftermath of Caius's murder, the city relies on that iron fist. As the fires die down, elections are finally held under heavy guard, leading to Milo's exile. His gangs scatter like dust in the wind. Rome breathes again, though shakily, as if recovering from a long fever. The Praetorians have restored order, yes, but they reveal something dangerous: how easily power can shift from the Senate to a single man backed by soldiers. The Republic may have survived the gang wars, but it has taken a significant step toward a new kind of rule. As you reflect on this transformation, consider how the balance of power shapes the world around you. As the Praetorians maintain order and Milo is exiled, Rome enters a period of fragile calm. Yet beneath this surface tranquility lies a profound transformation that will alter the Roman world forever. The gang wars have revealed a reality the Republic has long denied. The Senate is incapable of protecting its own capital, not from mobs, not from warlords, and certainly not from itself. Once the citizens witness soldiers patrolling the streets to restore peace, it becomes hard to envision Rome functioning without them. For a fleeting moment, Pompey emerges as the city's protector. His authority seems nearly absolute, and the once proud and independent Senate now finds itself relying on him, much like a frightened patient clings to a doctor in times of crisis. But Pompey's rise to power does not come without consequences. It sets a dangerous precedent. If one man with an army can rescue Rome from disorder, why not allow one man to rule indefinitely? Why maintain elections, laws, and the traditions built over centuries when military order can replace political discourse? The Praetorians become a constant presence, reshaping daily life in Rome. They oversee crowds, protect officials, and solidify their role within the political landscape. As the years go by, their influence only intensifies. Augustus, keenly aware of the shortcomings of the late Republic, recognizes that the violence on the streets has imparted an unsettling truth to the Romans. What might this truth mean for the future of Rome? As you reflect on this, consider how power dynamics can shift and reshape societies in ways that are both profound and lasting. Stability required a central figure. To achieve this, Augustus maintained and expanded the Praetorian Guard, placing it firmly under his control. He succeeded where others, like Milo and Claius, had faltered. Augustus monopolized legitimate force, transforming the very gangs that once terrorized Rome into foundational elements of the empire. Their street battles highlighted the weaknesses of decentralized power, demonstrating that a republic reliant on private muscle could not endure. By the time emperors took the throne, Rome had no tolerance for independent gangs roaming the streets. Only one entity was allowed to wield power, the emperors themselves. However, this security came at a high price. The Praetorian Guard evolved into kingmakers, assassins, and manipulators, meddling in imperial succession and auctioning off the title of emperor to the highest bidder. While the Republic feared mob rule, in its efforts to avoid it, Rome instead embraced military governance. Reflecting on the tumultuous times of Claius and Milo, they may seem like a chaotic sideshow, yet they represented a crucial turning point. It was in that moment that the Republic recognized it needed something stronger than itself to survive. Rome managed to outlast the gangs, but ultimately did not survive the solution it sought. In 1860, the United States found itself divided, pulling in two opposing directions. The East is bustling with cities, industry, and politics that seem to shift by the hour. In contrast, the West remains wild and only partially tamed, stretching endlessly beyond the Missouri River. It is dotted with mining camps, Mormon settlements, lonely forts, and a growing population eager for connection with the rest of the country. Yet, an enormous challenge looms. Communication between these two worlds is painfully slow. A letter traveling from St. Joseph, Missouri, to Sacramento, California, can take weeks or even months. Weather, attacks, broken wagons, or mere bad luck can all cause delays. As the nation edges closer to civil war, this sluggish pace is not just inconvenient, it is perilous. The country urgently needs speed, now not later. This sense of urgency opens a door for one of the most daring and reckless endeavors in American history. Three businessmen, William Russell, Alexander Major, and William Weddell, study the map, the chaos, and the nation's anxiety. They arrive at a bold conclusion. If the government can't deliver messages quickly enough, private riders on fast horses will. No committees, no bureaucracy, no waiting, just sheer grit, muscle, and horsepower. Imagine a plan that sounds utterly audacious. Riders prepare to traverse 1,800 miles of rugged terrain, deserts, mountains, and snow, engaging in a relentless relay of sprints. Stations are set to pop up every 10 to 15 miles, allowing for quick horse exchanges. These riders will brave fierce storms, endure the freezing conditions of the Sierra Nevada, and navigate vast plains where danger lurks just beyond the horizon. Their mission? To deliver mail from Missouri to California in a mere 10 days. This isn't merely a business venture, it's a high-stakes gamble. The route snakes through territories contested by native nations, regions notorious for banditry, and landscapes that have claimed many lives who dared to travel slower, safer paths. Yet, Urgency has a way of redefining what we deem reasonable. In a nation yearning for quicker communication, the Pony Express captivates the public's imagination even before the first horse sets off. People feel the stirrings of something new, a blend of adventure and national necessity. For the first time, everyday citizens can find out within days, rather than months, whether the Union is holding strong, fracturing, or drifting toward conflict. The Pony Express offers the promise of rapid connection, and America is poised to embrace it. The stage is set for an unprecedented journey. Picture this: a daring venture awaits, but it hinges on finding riders brave enough to take on the challenge. The Pony Express is more than just an ambitious concept. It's a logistical puzzle crafted in record time. You see, Russell, Major, and Weddle have a mere 2 months to transform a dream, sketched on paper, into a vital transcontinental connection. In just 60 days, they must carve out an 18,800-mile path through some of the most rugged terrain in North America. This involves recruiting riders, hiring station keepers, acquiring nearly 500 horses, and constructing over 150 relay stations from Missouri to California. Imagine trying to build a railroad overnight, but instead, it's all about wooden shacks, hay bales, and sheer determination. Each relay station serves a crucial role. Some are simple cabins, just enough to house a fresh, saddled horse, while others offer a place for riders to eat, rest, and occasionally sleep. However, the reality is that most riders won't linger for long. These stations are strategically placed every 10 to 15 miles, allowing riders to push their horses to the limit without wearing them out. Timing is everything. It's almost surgical in its precision. A delay of just a few minutes at one station can spiral into hours lost across the entire route. And as you follow this path, you'll find yourself navigating a landscape that shifts dramatically, each environment presenting its own unique challenges. Imagine the scene: riders departing from the settled farms of Missouri, traversing the vast Nebraska plains, and ascending the rugged deserts of Wyoming and Utah. They face the perilous ascent of the Sierra Nevada before finally reaching California's gold-rich valleys. Each stretch of this journey requires unique skills, unwavering nerves, and the resilience to endure biting winds one day and scorching heat the next. To carve out this trail, visionaries like Russell, Major, and Weddle enlisted blacksmiths, carpenters, wranglers, and tough frontiermen, individuals who thrived in places where maps became meaningless. Supplies had to be transported into the heart of nowhere. They brought in lumber, tools, nails, oats, saddles, rifles, and gunpowder, along with the station keepers who would endure months of isolation. Some stations were hastily constructed under the looming threat of attack, while others stood so isolated that the nearest neighbor was a staggering 50 miles away. Yet, against all odds, everything came together. By early April 1860, the line of stations was complete. Horses were in position, mailbags were packed, and riders stood ready, revolvers at their sides. They prepared for a task that promised not just exhaustion and danger, but also a rare kind of fame that few would ever achieve. At last, a relay network unlike anything the world had ever seen was primed to spring into action. The Pony Express calls for a unique kind of person. Not a soldier, not a cowboy, not even a gentleman, but someone with nerves of steel, ready to charge into danger without a moment's hesitation. The recruitment ads are clear. They seek young, wiry individuals, no older than 18, who are expert riders willing to face death daily. Orphans are preferred. It sounds almost like a joke, but it's anything but. Every word reflects the harsh reality of the job. Most applicants are teenagers, around 15 to 17 years old. These boys possess quick reflexes, light builds, and an eagerness that often tips into recklessness. They earn a decent wage for that era, about $100 a month, which surpasses what many adult men make working on farms or in the frontier. Yet it's not the pay that entices them. It's the thrill, the danger, and the pride that comes with delivering news faster than anyone else in America. They are more than just riders. They are symbols of speed in a nation hungry for it. Training is minimal. If you can ride a horse at full speed, mount and dismount without losing momentum, fire a revolver from the saddle, and are willing to cross hostile territory alone, you are ready. There's no uniform to adhere to. Riders wear whatever suits them: buckskin jackets, soft moccasins, felt hats pulled low, gloves to shield against the cold, and a revolver strapped at their waist. Some riders carry rifles, but many prioritize speed over firepower. A gun can slow you down, and hesitation might cost you your life. The most vital piece of equipment is the mochila, a specially designed leather cover that fits over the saddle, featuring 4 locked pockets. Riders treat it like sacred cargo, knowing that while losing your life is unfortunate, losing the mail is unforgivable. Once they accept the challenge, riders understand the harsh reality of their job. They ride between 75 and 100 miles per shift, changing horses every 10 to 15 miles, all without an escort or backup. They traverse territories ruled by tribes upset over expanding settlements, storm-lashed deserts, outlaw hideouts, and mountains where snow can bury a man alive. If a rider falls, there is no rescue. If a horse gives out, the rider must run on foot until reaching the next relay station. Despite these dangers, hundreds of young men step forward, eager to etch their names into the legends being created. The line is established, the riders are chosen, and America holds its breath for the first dash into the unknown. On April 3rd, 1860, the Pony Express charges into history. In St. Joseph, Missouri, a crowd gathers outside the stables long before dawn. Men in hats stretch their necks to catch a glimpse. Women lift their children high, and reporters scramble for the best view. They're not just observing a typical mail service, they're witnessing a national experiment, a bold challenge thrown into the vastness of the American frontier. At precisely 7:15 p.m., the first rider mounts a powerful bay mare, steadies himself, and surges westward like a bullet. The crowd erupts in cheers. Hooves pound against the cobblestone streets, sparks fly, and in mere moments, the rider disappears into the darkening horizon, carrying congressional speeches, business letters, newspapers, and the hopes of a nation eager for faster communication. From that moment on, the Pony Express operates like a living entity, fast, focused, and relentless. Each rider races to the next station, swapping horses in under 2 minutes before charging forward once more. The night is alive with movement as riders press into the Nebraska plains, where the endless grass stretches out like an ocean. Coyotes howl in the distance, and the stars shine so brightly they seem almost within reach. Every hoofbeat serves as a reminder: speed is paramount, eclipsing comfort and safety. By the time the mochila arrives in Wyoming, everything is running smoothly, a testament to the spirit of adventure and the urgency of connection. Riders race across vast landscapes at astonishing speeds, transitioning from frigid winds to the sweltering heat of day. Station keepers light their lanterns, waiting in the darkness, listening for the distant drumming that signals the next arrival. As each rider reaches the station, breathless and covered in dust, they shout a single word: mail. In an instant, the station bursts into action. Utah presents its own unique challenges. The mountain passes narrow into perilous trails, and the weather can change in an instant. Even in spring, snow can fall thick as wool. Riders navigate through Mormon settlements, where Brigham Young himself recognized the importance of swift communication for a region often cut off from the world. Then, they face the Sierra Nevada, the ultimate test. The mountains rise like jagged teeth, concealing blizzards, avalanches, and sheer cliffs. Yet the riders do not falter. They lean into the wind, urging their weary horses onward, pushing through snow so deep it swallows their hooves. Mail that began its journey in Missouri days earlier now crosses into California, defying every obstacle nature presents. 10 days after departing St. Joseph, the Mochila finally arrives in Sacramento. The seemingly impossible has become reality. As the Pony Express embarks on its journey, you quickly realize that routine is a misleading term. The life of a rider is anything but ordinary. Each shift transforms into a high-stakes gamble against the unpredictable frontier. You race across an expansive landscape that seems intent on swallowing you whole. One moment, the plains stretch out before you, calm and inviting. The next, a thunderstorm descends with such ferocity that it obscures the horizon in mere minutes. Lightning flashes across the sky, illuminating riders who hunch low over their horses, determined to push through sheets of rain that feel as harsh as gravel. The wind is relentless, especially on the high plains of Wyoming, where powerful gusts can knock hats off and push horses sideways. Dust storms can envelop you in a swirling brown haze, making the world around you nearly unrecognizable. In winter, the temperatures plummet well below freezing. Riders stuff newspapers into their coats for warmth, wrap their hands in wool rags, and pray their horses don't stumble on hidden ice. Arriving at stations, many find their fingers numb, joints stiff, and faces chafed by the biting wind and cold. Yet the weather is not the only danger. The trail winds through territories fraught with tension, particularly during the 1860 conflict with the Paiute people. As you reflect on these challenges, you might wonder how the riders find the courage to continue. Each journey is a testament to their resilience and determination. Stations face raids, horses disappear, and riders sometimes vanish without a trace. Their fates are speculated upon, but never truly known. In certain areas, riders must journey through the night without lanterns, relying solely on moonlight and instinct to evade danger. This makes their path even more perilous. Yet, slowing down is not an option. The male riders must keep moving. Outlaws present their own threats. While some riders carry revolvers and small rifles, most prioritize speed over firepower. The guiding principle is clear: don't engage what you can outrun. A swift horse holds more value than a steady aim. Still, even the fastest mounts cannot completely shield riders from ambushes. Many report arrows embedded in saddles, bullet holes in their jackets, and narrow escapes from men who see the mochila as a target worth killing for. Fatigue looms large. After covering 70 or 80 grueling miles, riders sometimes nod off in their saddles, waking abruptly as their horses veer towards danger. Meals consist of whatever can be consumed quickly: cold biscuits, jerky, and bitter coffee gulped down during breathless sprints. Sleep comes in fleeting, dreamless snippets. Yet these riders continue their journey because the country relies on them, because the pay is enticing, and because the legend of the Pony Express grows ever more captivating. The Pony Express quickly became the stuff of legends. Its riders were remarkably young, bold, and fiercely determined, leading to tales about them spreading even faster than the letters they carried. While some stories may have grown with each retelling, many were rooted in truth, astonishing acts of endurance that surpass anything a modern courier or soldier might achieve. These young men were more than just employees. They became enduring symbols of the unstoppable spirit of the American frontier. Among the most famous riders was William Buffalo, Bill Cody. His experiences on horseback eventually transformed into a global entertainment phenomenon. However, long before he captivated audiences with Wild West shows, Cody was a fearless teenager, serving as one of the Pony Express's relief riders. In an extraordinary feat, he covered nearly 300 miles in one continuous run after the tragic death of the next rider during the Pute War. With hardly any rest and little regard for his own safety, Cody completed the route, showcasing just how far one could push themselves when duty called. Cody was not alone in his bravery. Robert Pony Bob Haslam is often remembered for what is considered the greatest ride in the service's history. When a violent uprising severed access to relay stations across Nevada, Pony Bob took on the mochila, traveling from Friday Station to Buckland Station, a daunting 120 miles out, and then another 120 miles back, through treacherous and hostile territory. These stories remind us of the incredible courage and resilience displayed by those young riders who became legends in their own right. Would you like to continue exploring more tales like these? Imagine a world where courage meets the open trail. Picture riders who faced ambushes, endured the sting of arrows embedded in their gear, and completed their journeys despite being exhausted, wounded, and nearly frozen. Their adventures quickly became legends, celebrated in newspapers from New York to San Francisco. But there were others too, riders who made their mark in quieter yet equally heroic ways. Some braved flooded rivers, gripping their horses' manes as the current pulled them along. Others galloped through blizzards so intense that they lost all sense of direction, relying solely on their horses' instincts to guide them. A few fought off attackers with nothing but their revolvers and sheer determination. Many safeguarded precious mailbags, hiding them beneath their coats, resolute in their mission to protect the letters entrusted to them from rain, fire, or foes. What bound these riders together was a simple yet powerful creed: deliver the mail or die trying. They carried vital news, election results, business deals, love letters, and updates on wars, messages that influenced decisions thousands of miles away. For the isolated towns of the West, the arrival of a rider meant a connection to the outside world. Just the sight of their silhouette on the horizon could ignite cheers of joy. These riders were young, reckless, underpaid, and perpetually exhausted. Yet, for 18 extraordinary months, they captured the imagination of a nation and secured their place in American mythology. Would you like to delve deeper into this remarkable chapter of history? By the summer of 1860, the Pony Express has transformed into more than just a mail route. It has become a fragile lifeline stretched across a volatile frontier. Tensions ignite, and the Pote War erupts, fueled by deep-seated grievances over land encroachment, broken treaties, and rising violence from settlers. Suddenly, a service already fraught with peril becomes nearly suicidal. Stations that were once quiet outposts have now turned into targets. As riders approach relay stops, they encounter scenes of destruction: buildings burned to the ground, empty corrals, and station keepers gone missing. Horses, the very essence of the express, are being stolen in alarming numbers. In the worst instances, entire station crews are killed, leaving behind haunting reminders that the frontier offers no illusions of safety, the disruptions are devastating. Whole sections of the route become impassable. Riders, who once confidently sprinted into the night, now navigate territories patrolled by warriors who move silently and know the land intimately. Some riders attempt to slip through under the moonlight, while others ride at full gallop, hoping that sheer speed will secure their escape. Yet many choose to turn back, understanding that the risks have become insurmountable. As you reflect on this tumultuous period, consider the courage it took to face such uncertainty. Would you have ventured into the unknown? During this challenging time, the Pony Express achieved remarkable feats. Riders like Pony Bob Haslam faced arrow fire, ambushes, and burned out stations, all to ensure the mail kept moving. Station keepers huddled inside basic wooden buildings, relying on dried food and nerves soaked in gunpowder to survive. Messages zipped between California and the East Coast, carrying urgent updates about violence, troop movements, and conditions on the frontier. Yet, the cost was steep. The company had to hire armed escorts, rebuild stations, restock stolen horses, and pay higher wages for the danger they faced. Finances were already tight. The Pony Express had always been a risky venture, and the war pushed that risk toward collapse. Despite the challenges, they pressed on, determined to keep the system running. For many riders, this mission became more than just a job. It transformed into a matter of pride, survival, and loyalty to one another. As the conflict dragged on, mail delivery slowed, and stations flickered like unreliable lanterns. The constant threat of danger took its toll on everyone involved. Yet the Pony Express endured, bloodied, battered, and astonishingly persistent. However, this survival came at a high price. The violence revealed just how fragile the entire operation truly was. As America edges closer to a much larger conflict, the Civil War, the idea of maintaining a costly and perilous service starts to seem unsustainable. The Pony Express, at the peak of its fame, faces a silent rival that is rapidly expanding across the American frontier. This new technology moves faster than any horse, never rests, and shows no concern for storms or ambushes. It is the telegraph, a simple wire buzzing with electricity, capable of transmitting messages from coast to coast in mere seconds. While riders risk their lives in the saddle, telegraph crews are busy hammering poles into the frozen ground, stringing lines across mountains, deserts, and plains. With every mile of wire laid down, the future draws nearer, and the Pony Express unknowingly races toward its own demise. To the public, the Express seems invincible. Newspapers celebrate daring riders, record-breaking deliveries, and mail that crosses the continent in half the time of any previous method. Yet, behind the scenes, the company's ledgers reveal a harsher reality. The Pony Express is losing money at an alarming rate. The expenses for horses, stations, repairs, and wages far outweigh the profits. Even more troubling is the fact that the federal government, its most significant potential customer, is placing its bets on the telegraph, not on young riders armed with revolvers. It's a moment of reflection on how quickly progress can shift the landscape of communication and commerce, leaving once thriving ventures in the dust. What do you think will happen next? Telegraph crews encountered their own unique set of dangers. They faced storms that tore down lines, mountains that resisted every tool at their disposal, and even attacks on construction sites during the Pute War. Yet they persevered. Day after day, pole after pole, the telegraph line extended further, When the Eastern and Western telegraph companies decided to link their networks through Salt Lake City, a sense of urgency filled the air. The Pony Express riders sensed it. Station keepers whispered rumors. The wire is coming, and it's only 100 miles away. Soon, they might not be needed anymore. Some riders felt a sense of relief, envisioning an end to the danger and exhaustion of their journey.